Today we're going to take a look at 5 prisoners who murdered their cellmates. The murders these people committed are definitely not something you see every day. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Stephen Sandison.
People think I'm some kind of hero, well, I'm actually not. I just, did what I thought was best.
Stephen Sandison made headlines for taking justice into his own hands when he killed his cellmate. But he wanted to set the record straight. He's no hero, only a man who felt forced into a difficult situation. On February 2nd, 2015, Stephen D. Sandison accepted responsibility for the October murder of 67-year-old Theodore Dyer, who was being jailed at Saginaw Correctional Facility. Through his guilty plea in court, he admitted to a charge of second-degree homicide. Sandison stated that he took the life of Dyer, who had been previously sentenced to up to 50 years for first-degree criminal sexual conduct. Allegedly, his violent act was in response to Dyer's continual communication regarding his case, a constant reminder that Dyer had molested a 9-year-old child. Dyer tried many times to rationalize his behavior. Sandison chose not to forgive him, and instead of walking away, he took matters into his own hands. Sandison said he hit Dyer and wrapped a cord around his neck.
I don't know, I just got mad and then hit him and then I killed him. When I hit him and knocked him out, and then I took the shoelaces out of his shoes, tied them together, wrapped it around his neck, and strangled him.
Sandison was already serving a life sentence for the October 23, 1991 murder of his girlfriend in Wayne County. Sandison said he did not feel guilty for killing his cellmate. I feel bad for maybe his family or something, but as far as remorse towards him, no. Judge Borchard, without further comment, sentenced Sandison to the maximum penalty of life in prison with no possibility of parole. This means that Sandison will be spending the rest of his days behind bars. Christian Gonzalez. In 2020, Christian Gonzalez, a 24-year-old man, was charged with first-degree murder for brutally beating Pedro Ruiz. According to prosecutors, this attack included hitting the victim with an improvised weapon made from bars of soap placed inside a sock and dragging him by his hair around the cell. Gonzalez, a member of the Satan Disciples street gang, brutally attacked and killed Ruiz in a show of power against their rivals, the Latin Saints. Ruiz had only been taken into custody 72 hours before. When investigators entered his cell, they uncovered a disturbing scene: a ripped sock splattered with blood, and what appeared to be a bloody undershirt and boxers from Gonzalez. Gonzalez had been in jail since June 2, 2019 for an attempted murder. In 2017, Gonzalez attempted this act of violence when he opened fire with an assault-style rifle on a father and his son. This left the father wounded in both his leg and hip, while the son was grazed by one of 11 rounds that were fired at them. In this case, Gonzalez already faced charges of attempted murder, aggravated battery, aggravated discharge of a firearm, and illegally possessing a gun. It was not the first time that Gonzalez used violence against an inmate. Surveillance video revealed Gonzalez beat a 41-year-old inmate along with 5 others. This inmate was kicked and punched repeatedly. As the victim was lying in a pool of blood, Gonzalez and another inmate dropped a Joker playing card on his body. When questioned as to why 2 members of rival gangs were put in the same cell, a jail spokesperson declined to comment, saying the investigation was ongoing. Jaime Osuna.
I've sat in this courtroom more than a dozen times, and all I've seen was a smile. But I do hope that one day that Osuna will have sorrow and remorse.
Jaime Osuna showed no remorse as he was sent to prison for the rest of his life for the murder of Yvette Pena Reed. While being sentenced to the high price of life in prison without parole for her horrific torture and murder, he arrogantly smirked and waved at Yvette Pena's family. After committing the heinous act of violence in 2011, Osuna was arrested for murdering 37-year-old mother Yvette Pena. Despite the lengthy 6-year legal trial it took to finally reach justice, he ultimately decided to enter a guilty plea in 2017 in order to avoid the death penalty. But while in prison in 2019, Osuna made headlines again for an unthinkable crime. In prison, he decapitated and dissected the body of his cellmate. Luis Romero, 44, was killed with a makeshift knife. Osuna allegedly cut out one eye, chopped off a finger, and removed part of his ribs and lung before finishing with the beheading. To top it all off, an autopsy revealed that Osuna had even gone so far as to viciously slice through both sides of Romero's face, creating the appearance of an extended smile. When guards found Osuna in his cell, they discovered a necklace crafted from the body parts of his deceased friend Romero. Once again, he did not feel remorse. Romero has even said that he loved killing and would do it again.
I don't have no sympathy. I'm sadistic. I really don't care. I'll do it and I'll do it again over and over.
Osuna will never see the courtroom for this crime. because the judge has ruled that Osuna is not competent to stand trial for Romero's death due to a combination of schizophrenia, antisocial personality disorder, and borderline personality disorder symptoms. Fortunately, it's certain that he'll be in prison for the rest of his life. Anthony George. Anthony George, 32, was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole on October 7, 2013 for the killing of Adam Kargus, 29. Kargus was choked, punched, kicked, and stomped to death. George had already been locked up because in December of 2012, a year earlier, he was found guilty of murdering Tyrone Williamson. George, 42 at the time, had been with Williamson at a house, but he was thrown out of the property after being accused of stealing Williamson's phone. George, intoxicated by alcohol and drugs, yelled at Williamson before viciously stabbing him 3 times. For this crime, George was handed a life sentence and ordered to serve at least 21 years in prison. In this surveillance video, you see George dragging the body of Adam into a common shower area the next morning, and the jail guards never seemed to notice. Kargus's body had 32 visible injuries from the beating. George had a long-standing history of aggression fueled by alcohol abuse, an issue that was brought to the attention of the court. His behavior was deemed as risky and destructive, yet he continued down the damaging path with no signs of slowing his momentum. Kargus, by contrast, was a drug addict who had been arrested for fraud. He was sent to jail after he was denied bail once the court learned he was still using drugs. Locked in a cell together, George viciously attacked Kargus. He punched and kicked him while pressing his face against the glass, as fellow inmates banged on their own cells in response, some cheering George's actions, while others frantically warned the guards of what was happening. In court, George showed remorse for his actions. "I honestly didn't mean for this to happen. I considered Adam a friend. It wasn't a native or white thing." In an interview George gave, he also said it was not his intention to kill Kargus.
And I don't understand what happened. Like, I considered Adam a friend. He should have never been in that situation. I should have never been in that situation.
During the sentencing, the judge said to the courtroom, to suggest the murder was brutal would be an understatement. Christopher Scarver. When you hear the name Jeffrey Dahmer, there's a big chance you know the story about the serial killer who murdered at least 17 men and ate and stored their body parts in the fridge. But the man who would put an end to Jeffrey Dahmer is usually forgotten, also known as Christopher Scarver. On the morning of November 28, 1994, Jeffrey Dahmer had a fateful encounter while cleaning up bathrooms in the prison. He was joined by fellow inmates Christopher Scarver and Jesse Anderson. With hatred burning inside him for what Dahmer had done to so many people over those years, Scarver pulled out a newspaper clipping about the murders from his pocket and confronted him directly. As he told the Post, "I asked him if he did those things because I was fiercely disgusted," he recalled. He was shocked. Yeah, he was. He started looking for the door pretty quick. I blocked him. Scarver then struck Dahmer with the bar, crushing his skull. He ended up dead, Scarver told the newspaper. I put his head down. Then, Scarver killed Anderson, who was serving a life sentence for the 1992 killing of his wife. Christopher Scarver was already serving a life sentence for murder when he killed Jeffrey Dahmer. Scarver was part of a job training program with the Wisconsin Conservation Corps when he was fired in 1990. In response to losing his job, Scarver returned to the workplace with a gun and demanded money from his supervisor, Stephen Lohman. When Scarver didn't receive the money he wanted, he shot his supervisor in the head, killing him, and fired into him twice more after he died. At his court appearance, Scarver entered the courtroom singing,
"Rain or shine, sharing your dreams, your heart and your mind."
Scarver pleaded no contest to the murders and was sentenced to an additional 2 life sentences.
Parole eligibility date will not be until the year 3077.
As of 2023, 54-year-old Christopher Scarver is still in jail, with no prospect of life outside the prison ever again. And with that, the video has come to an end. We truly hope you enjoyed our video about the prisoners who killed their cellmates. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and share your thoughts with us in the comments. Be sure to hit subscribe if you don't want to miss any courthouse updates from this channel. We'll see you soon for an all-new case, so stay tuned until then.